Two moms, too much coffee, tired eyes but hearts so full. Thanks for tuning in with us. Hope you brewed a cup for you.
Welcome back to Two Moms, Too Much Coffee. We wanted to offer a trigger warning for this episode. It is about Black maternal health and the impacts we see as Black women while giving birth in hospitals. Thank you.
Mercedes Wells, Indiana, forced to give birth in the car after hospital discharged her.
Jessica Ross of Georgia, baby decapitated after repeated requests for C-sections ignored.
DeChelle Johnson, Florida, gave birth in a hospital waiting room chair.
Jade Garrison of Connecticut gave birth alone on a hospital bathroom floor.
Tanisha Williams, Mississippi, gave birth in her car after multiple hospitals turned her away.
Crystal Anderson of Kansas, repeated complaints ignored before fatal postpartum complications.
Tori Bowie, Florida, Olympic champion whose high-risk symptoms were missed.
Amber Rose Isaacs of New York, repeated pleas of complications dismissed before fatal delivery. So that's a lot. Yeah. How are you feeling?
Just sitting with it, to be honest, because it's a lot and there's more. That's just who we're talking about today. So it's just scary because we've talked about it before of like our biggest fear, talking to our doulas. And it's such a valid fear walking into a hospital as a Black woman that you may not walk out of a hospital. So it's scary. It's heavy.
Yeah, it's such a terrifying experience. Looking up all of these cases of hospital neglect, whatever you want to call it, I just felt sick afterwards. I immediately texted you, like, this is a lot. Like, every single one of these women have gone through so much, and it is honestly like it's completely terrifying to think that giving birth is already like such a terrifying experience. So, a lot of people believe it's like a really wonderful experience, but it is, it's like very intense what your body is going through. So it in itself is very terrifying. And so it's certainly seeing this and reading these, and that's just from the past like year. Like it's not like I went back very far. And so it is just incredible how many times this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a statistic out there that it's 3.5 times more likely for Black women to die during childbirth or have any complications during childbirth than any other race, which is like, what's going on here,
Yeah. One of the stories, Mercedes Wells of Indiana, she was forced to give birth in the car after the hospital discharged her. And I was talking to Nick about it, and I was just like, I think about my labor, how much pain I was in. It mentions in the articles about her, she was in active labor. I believe she has 3 kids already. So she knew what was happening with her body. And I was telling Nick, like, I don't have kids before. Well, I did not have children before I was had. And I even knew like she is coming. I cannot imagine them telling me, escorting me out and being like, no, you're not ready. Your water broke, which is also just crazy. Like her water had broke. And they let her leave. So I can't, it just doesn't make sense. I think that's the issue, because like no medical way that it can be explained to me would make it make sense, besides the fact that unfortunately she's a Black woman, and Black women always have that stereotype of just being dramatic and loud and angry. So she probably was yelling and angry because, whatever, not because she was having a baby. And it's so infuriating, to be quite honest. It's just, it's infuriating.
Yeah, definitely she ended up having a baby in the car afterwards. And, I would just be so frustrated. I don't even know, like, just not being believed. Like, there's just so heavy on like dismissing symptoms of what's going on. So even in that scenario and multiple ones that we just mentioned, the symptoms were dismissed, and it led to a very intense outcome for the mother or the child. And it is just like, why can't these women be believed? What's going on that we can't believe what they're saying and get them the support they need, especially when they're in the right place? They're exactly where they're
Mhm.
supposed to be. Everybody says, the hospital's the safest place to be. But what happens when it's not for Black women? What
Yeah.
do we do then?
No.
And I had a friend who's leading a conversation on this topic and had said if Black women can't give birth in the hospital and they also are dying at home during home births, where are they supposed to give birth? And it's just like, where? Well, I don't know the answer to that, which means that we likely need some real change to happen somehow to have a lot of that internal biases not be against Black women.
Yeah, I agree. It's like dismissing symptoms, or it's not even just for like having a baby or being with OBs. It's just across the board. There's a woman that popped up on my TikTok and she was telling her story of, and this is a little off topic, but she was telling her story about how she ended up getting diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer because every time she would go to the doctor, they were dismissing her and just thought she was being dramatic. And she had a rash on her breast and they were like, oh, it's eczema, or oh, it's a heat rash. And she's just like, I know my body. I have all of these symptoms. And they're like, oh, have you checked your thyroid? Have you checked this X, Y, and Z? And then by the time she went to a doctor that was listening to her, she had stage 4 cancer. And this was like over a year span of doctors just not listening. And it's like, you can't diagnose yourself. So, like, what are you supposed to do? So it's just, it gets even scarier when you're bringing a child into the world, because it's like now I am scared for my life, her or his life. And then now she's going to go or he's going to go through the same things that I'm going through now. So it's just like, where do we go? Like, where can we feel safe so that we can live ultimately? Like,
Mhm.
I was going to say so we could be healthy, but so we could live truly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that kind of leads in a little bit of part of this of what I want to talk about is kind of just like how moms can self-advocate, the way
Mhm.
that you just discussed how the woman, she's like, no, this is not right. It's not okay. I do think that something we can do as Black women is advocate for ourselves, have somebody there that knows how to advocate with you. I thought it was really important for Adam. I used his white privilege because he is white to make sure he is loud in these rooms. So if I'm not able to voice what I need to be voiced, or if I, tell him, but I'm like too stubborn or whatever to tell the nurse that he doesn't listen to me saying like, no, don't worry about it. He just lets everybody know. And that was a really intentional conversation that we had
Mhm.
to make sure that everybody in the room is advocating for you. And we're not just like, listening to what the nurse has to say and then just going exactly what they have to say because things can go wrong. And especially if you're feeling something, to make it known and make it
Mhm.
known by anybody that's there with you that can be a little bit more level headed. That's not an active labor. Not saying that these people aren't level headed, but
Right.
there's extenuating circumstances going on. That can talk to people to make sure that these situations are at least mentioned. So people aren't just like walking out of the hospital without saying, like, well, but I mean, I feel my entire baby crowning right now, things like that. And so, a way that I had to self advocate for myself I had GBS and it meant that I needed to get antibiotics multiple times throughout the labor process. And it ended up really hurting me. And they say, like, if it's hurting too much, we can slow it down, we can dilute it with saline. But one of the nurses, right at the nurse switch, she came in, she put in the packet of the antibiotics, and I've never felt something so intense in my life.
Mm.
I would even say that, like, it was worse than, like, childbirth, like, because of how quickly it was. Like, it was, like, quick, and it was where I wanted to cut my arm off. It hurt so bad, and I wasn't gonna say anything to the nurse afterwards. Like, no, I was just
Yeah.
like, "Okay, well, it's over, it's done, fine." And my partner, he advocated for me. He was like, absolutely not. Do not do that to her again. That was awful. And it's just one of those ways that like, obviously that's not going to kill me, but there are things that like could happen where I'm not advocating for myself and it could lead to something worse. So having the ability to either get the courage to advocate yourself in these hospital rooms or to have somebody there that'll do it for you, I think is definitely a great way to make sure that you stay alive.
Yeah, 100%. And me and Nick had the same experience where we had that discussion, which a little bit different because we live in Florida. Nick is Hispanic. Some people know what that means and some people don't. And if you don't, that's privilege. But still, we had that conversation of like him advocating and making sure that like if I'm not able to speak for myself or I'm scared to speak for myself, which Nick is good at doing that in general, but we had to like have that conversation just because who just knows. And same thing like with my doula, like she was Black, but there's the same thing. Like I wanted a Black doula, but also are they going to listen to her? So we kind of had to sit down and have that conversation even with her. Like, she's like, what do you want me like to advocate for? What like other conversations that you find to be really important? Like I will go to the end for you. So you just let me know. And Nick, what are you going to advocate for? So we kind of have like a plan. And even at the beginning of my pregnancy, I was at a different clinic and it was pretty much an all white OB staff. And it was where I was going for my gynecology appointments. But every time I went, they put you with a different doctor because you don't know who your doctor's going to be when you deliver. But every time I went in there, I was like having to explain my story again. And I'm like, you guys don't have charts? Like, you're not reading this? And my fear was A, they already were talking C-section because of my fibroid. And B, I was going to go into the hospital and was going to end up being with a doctor I hadn't met with. And it was going to be some doctor who doesn't respect Black women or doesn't think that we know what we're talking about or who knows. And then it was going to be a terrible experience. And I was like, no, I cannot do it. And I ended up switching my care to my doctor who I loved, but she was Black. And that's who delivered my baby. And she knew all of my wishes and she respected that. But not to say that Black staff will listen to you either, because I think it's Jessica Ross of Georgia. She had a Black staff, and I'm not really going to dig into her story too much just because it is very triggering. But if anyone wants to read about it, Jessica Ross. She was in Georgia, and I believe her hospital was Southern Regional Medical Center. So read about that. But she was with a Black staff, and her story is, I don't even have words, to be quite honest. So at the end of the day, no matter who your doctors are, who your care is with, like it's just so important to have someone there to advocate for you and just try to keep you alive, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of my like the biggest reasons I went with the OB I went with, because I was like, I need to know who you are. Like I'm not gonna give birth with some random person in front of me, not on purpose at least. And so I completely understand why you would switch for that one of, I mean, obviously it's one of the reasons, but that being a reason for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's taking a breath. It's heavy. It's heavy stuff. It really is.
Yep. And another one of the things is pain minimization. I actually think it is like generational, where Black women are like, nothing hurts me. I'm fine. I'm the strong Black woman. That whole trope is a thing. And so pain minimization inside of a hospital is not surprising to me, to say the least. I actually really struggle with trying to figure out what pain I'm feeling. If it is pain, I often say like, childbirth hurts, but it's not like the worst thing, which is insane to say because,
That is insanity. But
like people, honestly, I think the hardest part about childbirth is like pushing. It's not even the pain so much as it is like, I'm tired. At least the last time I was like exhausted. But anyway, all that to say is I think that it's probably like a generational trauma thing for me where I'm like,
yeah.
Nothing hurts me and I'm totally fine. And so pain minimization in hospitals, is kind of like a sore subject for me because I just really feel like I don't even know how to describe pain very well because they ask me like, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much did that hurt? Compared to what? Like,
Mm,
I don't know the scale. I'm like, from if you're asking me while in the middle of childbirth, like 0 to childbirth, I had 6. Like the bulk of my time, I'm like, I don't know, 5, 6. And I don't even, to me, I'm like, a 5 probably doesn't even hurt. So it's hard for me because even if I'm saying something hurts, it probably hurts a lot by the time I'm
mm,
getting there to saying like something hurts. And so I just think there needs to be like a better way to believe Black women when they're saying they're in pain, because it could just be a really learned behavior to not be able to vocalize that
mm.
they're in pain. Or if they're vocalizing they're in pain, you need to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't know that about you. I mean, I know that you, in general, from knowing you for as long as I have, that emotions are not your thing to express, which is also, I'm sure, a generational thing, and a learned behavior ultimately. But it's funny you like saying that about not believing because I was a screamer. Like I did all the hypnobirthing and not screaming like at the, like high pitch, but like the guttural, like that's what you're supposed to do. And I remember one of the nurses, and all my nurses were great, but one of them was like, just breathe. And I was like, I am breathing, but
Mhm.
I'm also having a baby. And like, and I immediately thought like to myself, like, does she think I'm being dramatic because I'm Black? And that should not be a thought. It shouldn't be a
Right.
thought. It's someone else, who knows? Like she literally probably could have just been like, it's okay, like trying to talk me through it. But the first thing I thought was like, does she think I'm like making this pain up? Like, and I can describe my pain 10 out of 10. This is terrible. But the first thing I thought was like, she probably doesn't believe me that I'm in this much pain, being a like dramatic, loud Black woman. And that's sad that that is the
Mhm.
first thought. And Nick even reminded me, he's like, you kept saying sorry. Like you kept saying, so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so loud. I'm sorry. And like, he's like, and even my doctor, when she came in, she was like, yell, you do what you need to do. Like, you are doing a great job. And I just kept repeating, like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And like, why am I saying sorry? Who am I
Right.
saying sorry to? For what? Would I have had that same expression if I were not a Black woman? I don't know. Probably not. But, I'll never know.
Yeah, that's because that is who we are. That is, I mean, it's so upsetting to even remotely have those thoughts. I mean, I could probably move it out of Black maternal care into just general life where you're
Mm.
like, "Yeah, are they treating me this way because I'm Black?" And so it certainly is, um, it's upsetting to say the least in 2025 that we're still here, doing the
And going
same song and
backwards.
dance. Yeah, exactly. Making America as great as it was, as they say, or something like that.
But yeah, then like another frustrating aspect of it is like how often are these healthcare professionals held accountable for their actions? Some of the
Mhm.
stories of some of the women we have mentioned, some of the doctors did get fired and some of the doctors did, have repercussions. But my first thought is, how many times did this happen before where it didn't make the news? And it
Mhm.
didn't go viral, that they did not have to take accountability, that they did not get, any repercussion, or was it under the rug through like a quiet malpractice suit that the hospital just kept hush hush? I'm sure a lot. I'm sure
Right.
this was not the first time. And I know that's something like me and you both didn't experience that, thank God, but it's just frustrating because I mean, I know for you, your future probably looks like adoption and potentially, who knows for me and Nick, but if we do have another one, it's still like, okay, am I going to go through this now? Like, is this my time? And it shouldn't be that way because it should be like, I know that the care that I'm with, like, if something were to happen, all of the doctors, like, are going to take care of me, A, and B, the ones who wouldn't have been taken like, action against them. So I'm safe. And that's just not the case. I just feel like they're all kind of like take care of their own.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And it is, I know that there was a very viral TikToker or a very viral TikTok video of the woman that was in triage trying to, telling her she's like, I need to give this baby, I had this baby right now. Her mom's recording. And it's in those situations there, it's like, we have like evidence of what's going on. And I don't even know if anything has happened yet with that nurse. I mean, I know I saw another TikTok that was like saying that it wasn't the nurse's first time with Black women. And it wasn't with a pregnant woman the second time, but it was still a Black person with this nurse who just cannot listen to people saying that they're in distress and just really undermining them in every step of the way. So it is one of those situations where it happened once before and now she's doing it again and is causing it more and more harm. But yet these OBs and these hospitals are not being held accountable enough. And it is continuing to happen. Which is, it is upsetting. I know there are a lot of different organizations and different movements out there that are trying to pass some policies on this to make sure that we as Black women are protected in the hospitals. And I'm hoping that some of them are successful. Well, we will make sure to post those in our caption, so you guys can all take a look as well.
Yeah. I just would say my last piece would be for any Black woman that's pregnant or thinking of having babies, just do your research, heavily research your OB. Don't settle. Figure out what plan you want and research that plan to the end so you can go into that clinic or into that hospital and know what your options are, what they are legally not allowed to do, and just try to learn as much as you can. And if you can afford a doula that is on your side to advocate for you, especially if you don't have support. I know that there are some single moms. If you don't have that support, try to get someone to be there for you. And I know that these things, I'm sure a lot of these women probably did that. But if we can just have as much under our belt as possible to decrease the chance, then just do what you can.
Yep, I 100% agree.
Thank you guys for listening. I know it was a heavy one. So if you guys made it to the end, we appreciate you. We would love to chat about this. If you guys have anything to chat about, anything to talk to us about, or if you want us to bring it up on the next podcast, let us know. But yeah, thank you for listening and bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Two moms, too much coffee, tired eyes but hearts so full. Thanks for tuning in with us. Hope you brewed a cup for you. The morning light is shining bright. The world outside